right, this year's political landscape has transformed late-night comedy television. It's the subject of a new CNN special report, Late Night in the Age of Trump, hosted by Brian Stelter.
This is going to be a crazy one.
Every day there's something nuts.
You're not the POTUS, you're the BLOTUS.
Wait, how long does this wall have to be?
He's the most mocked man in America.
That is the problem with the media.
Monopolizing late night.
It's hard not to feel like you're being redundant.
Kim Jong-un as Rocket Man.
Kim Jong-un Rocket Man.
Kim Jong-un as Rocket Man.
Dominating SNL.
Such a nasty woman.
He's like a mine, producing raw material.
He's blowing up scripts.
Oh, that's a really great joke.
Good. The pace of the news. Stop it so much faster.
Me first.
Making and breaking careers.
It's like a little kind of Churchill.
Excuse me.
Would you say you're on a mission to take him down?
I would like to see him brought down to the ground, preferably in handcuffs.
You're turning into a real tater.
Has late night gone too far?
Does it go disrespectful of the office of the presidency? I think so.
Let's roll!
Oh boy, don't miss this special report, Late Night in the Age of Trump, tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern. All right, hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm Frederica Whitfield. Another war of words. This time, the President of the United States attacks the father of a UCLA basketball player for a perceived slight, tweeting, "I should have left the players in jail in China." While the President has plenty to say on the college basketball players, he remains silent on controversial GOP Senate candidate Roy Moore, as more women come forward and accuse him more of sexual assault and inappropriate behavior. This as 3 of the state's largest newspapers are now urging voters to support Democrat Doug Jones over Republican Roy Moore. And the number of Republicans calling on Moore to withdraw is growing, with multiple GOP lawmakers speaking out this morning.
These allegations are extremely disturbing, and I hope that the voters of Alabama choose not to elect him.
We are uncomfortable with the explanations that Roy Moore has given to date.
You've seen people across the board, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, withdraw their support, say he should step aside. I still hope he will do that and do the right thing.
All right, well, let's begin with this latest dispute that the president is igniting with a private citizen. Today, the president shot back at LeVar Ball, the father of one of the UCLA basketball players arrested in China. The president was apparently upset that the father belittled the president's role in the student's release. Here is the president's tweet. Now that the 3 basketball players are out of China and saved from years in jail, LeVar Ball, the father of LiAngelo, is unaccepting of what I did for his son and that shoplifting is no big deal. I should have left them in jail. CNN's Boris Sanchez is covering this for us from the White House. Boris, any more from the White House on this?
Not yet, Fred. Look, President Trump has never been one to turn down a fight in the press. This all started while the president was abroad on his 12-day trip to Asia. These 3 UCLA basketball players were detained for allegedly shoplifting some Louis Vuitton sunglasses. After finding out about it, the White House says that President Trump personally asked Chinese President Xi Jinping for their release and return to the United States. In that process, after it was announced that they would be returned, the president actually wondered aloud on Twitter whether or not these 3 players would thank him in his role in getting them back home. All 3 of them did on Wednesday during a press appearance. Here's one of them now, LiAngelo Ball, thanking the president.
I'd also like to thank President Trump and the United States government for the help that they provided as well. I'm grateful to be back home, and I'll never make a mistake like this again. I'm extremely sorry for those who I let down, but I'm also very thankful for all the help, love, and support that they provided, and I take full responsibility for my actions, and I'm sorry. Thank you.
The president subsequently tweeted about the players, saying that he was glad that they were back home and warning them to be careful of the many pitfalls in life. Well, on Thursday, LiAngelo's father, LeVar, was talking to ESPN, and he, as you said, Fred, downplayed the president's role in their return, telling ESPN, quote, What was he over there for? The president, don't tell me nothing. Everybody wants to make it seem like he helped me out. Well, as you saw today, the president took exception to those comments, suggesting that he should have left these U.S. citizens, these student athletes, imprisoned in China because one of their parents did not give him credit for their return in the press. Fred.
Boris Sanchez, thank you so much. Let's talk more about this with CNN contributor Cornell William Brooks. He is also the former president and CEO of the NAACP. Cornell's on the line with us. So, Cornell, glad you could be with us. So what do you make of the president, responding this way to what the father of one of the UCLA players had to say, and the president, took issue with this?
Well, frankly, it's quite disturbing and unsettling. I mean, LeVar Ball is a media provocateur, and Donald J. Trump is an American president. You can expect this kind of behavior from Mr. Ball. On the other hand, the president, generally speaking, Americans don't expect their president to engage in a foot-stomping, thumb-sucking temper tantrum on Twitter. The players thank the president specifically and by name for his leadership, for his responsibility in securing their freedom. And so for the president to basically ask for appreciation, get it, then subsequently wish the players a great life, then turn around and say he should have left them in jail, frankly, does not demonstrate or display the kind of leadership we would expect from a president. Presidents don't engage in this kind of behavior. In other words, credibility is the currency of leadership. And when the president does this kind of thing and has a tantrum on Twitter, he literally is expending, wasting credibility on something that really, frankly, does not merit his time or attention as the leader of the free world. So it's quite perplexing and disappointing.
Earlier, CNN senior media correspondent Brian Stelter and I were talking about this, and, Brian saw this, too, as, an issue of race, that the president was participating in race baiting, if you will. Do you see it that way?
Mm-hmm. This is a continuing saga. And what I mean by that is with respect to Colin Kaepernick, with respect to fights he's engaged in with players in the NBA, it seems as though he is looking to stoke the fires of racial animus and insecurity in this country by having these tantrums on Twitter. Again, it is beneath the dignity of the office. And we know that the president's playbook pretty well by now, that he engages in distraction by tweet. We have a great many things that are of concern to the Republic before Congress in terms of tax reform, in terms of health care. And so for the president, again, to be engaged in the process of demonizing and demeaning African Americans is frankly disgraceful. But we've seen it pretty consistently.
And what about on the world stage? What is the message, do you believe, that may be sent when you have the President of the United States who said on one hand he has used diplomacy to help win the release of these Americans abroad, and at the same time now those Americans are back on U.S. soil after making their very public apology and giving thanks to the president, and now the president would essentially undermine the release by saying, I should just leave them in jail. What does that do for all of the other Americans who may be held, for different varying reasons, and it might take U.S. diplomacy to help win their release?
Mm-hmm. What this latest social media saga suggests is that the diplomacy of the president is predicated and premised on ego rather than national interest and the security and the freedom and the safety of American citizens. And so to even suggest that we should have left these young men, and let us emphasize this, these young men who made a mistake, who had a lapse in judgment that we should have left them in jail is, frankly, unconscionable. And in an interesting way, those young men demonstrated more maturity after making a colossal mistake in terms of shoplifting, demonstrated more maturity after they engaged in shoplifting than the president has demonstrated after those basketball players engaged in shoplifting. And so on the world stage, you need a president who understands that leadership is about being credible. It's about being serious. It's about expending your words and your capital in ways that are thoughtful, in ways that engender respect, not only abroad, but at home. And so, again, this is another disappointing episode by our president.
Yeah, and I haven't heard anyone say that these young men have not handled themselves well, especially, after their return with their remarks and, showing contrition and thanking the university, thanking the support, the family, and, of course, thanking the President of the United States for his participation in their release. All right, Cornell, William Brooks, thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right,